Now, Mo Alithi, the founding executive director of Georgetown University's Institute of Politics and Public Service, and former Arkansas governor and Fox News contributor Mike Huckabee. Good to see you both. So the question is whether Ben Carson can withstand these attacks. I mean, you know what's funny to me, Mo, is that isn't he exactly what we typically point to as like the smartest person in any room, like brain surgeon, right? Isn't that what you always like? Other than rocket scientist, that's what you say. Like, he's no brain surgeon, but he can't run HUD?
Well, you know, look, I have respect for Ben Carson's skill in an operating room. But, look, I think it is a curious choice, and I do think that there are some legitimate concerns that he's going to have to answer in his confirmation hearings, and lucky for him, he'll have that opportunity. But you know, he's never really done anything with housing policy, with urban development policy, and he's never run a major organization or bureaucracy.
Okay, but you don't think he's smart enough to learn?
I'm not saying that maybe he's not, but I do think it's a curious choice. Typically, president-elects, and they're entitled to pick whomever they want, and the Senate is entitled to grill them.
Donald Trump has never been in office before. He's never been in office before. He's never run a government before or held any public office.
Right, and the jury's still out.
He's going to be the president.
And the jury's still out how he'll do. But what he said when he was pressed during the campaign on how he'll handle all these complex issues was that he was going to surround himself by experts in the field. I'm not sure that Ben Carson is an expert in this field. In HHS, maybe. Surgeon General,
all right, well, I'm going to get to Governor Huckabee in a minute. But why can't Ben Carson surround himself at HUD with people who understand housing and urban development and bring the decisions to him? And Ben Carson, as a very smart man, will then process the information and say, you're doing it all wrong, or here's a new way of looking at it, or here's how I see it. And that's the advantage of bringing in, you know, the citizen administrator.
And he's going to have an opportunity to make that case in his confirmation hearings. But typically you put people in with at least a passing knowledge, basic knowledge of the issue area of the major federal agency that they'll about to run.
How's that been working for us, right? Because all these people who back Donald Trump, they want him to bust up the system. They don't like to look to the past as the example of how the future needs to be. And I venture to say they love to see somebody like Ben Carson go in and take an agency, be it HUD, be it veterans, be it whatever it is, and just bring new perspectives to it so that we don't keep getting the same results.
Yeah, this is the million-dollar question of the Trump presidency. I'd say the voters that put him in office wanted to just roll a grenade into the room, right, and to just blow up the system. But we don't know what it's going to look like on the back end. Putting the people in who know something about the subject matter with Donald Trump's perspective might give the people what they want. But when you're putting in people who have no knowledge at all of the policies that they are about to implement and the amount of money that the federal government spends on these policies, then I think the questions need to be asked.
Governor Huckabee, Nancy Pelosi says Carson is a disconcerting and disturbingly unqualified choice. Your thoughts?
Why didn't she say that about Barack Obama when he was elected president? He had zero executive experience. He had never done anything in foreign policy. He had never owned anything significant, run a small business. He had a very lackluster career and a very limited career as a legislator. All of these things would apply. But let me ask you this. What is a brain surgeon? He's a person who goes in to one of the most complex systems on the planet, and he solves a problem by taking a look at incredibly complex situations and figuring out how to make them work.
Under enormous pressure.
Well, under enormous pressure, and somebody can live or die depending on the slightest move of his hand. The thought that Ben Carson is somehow not capable, that he's not qualified, is an insult to the intellect of every neurosurgeon on God's green earth.
Weren't we told, wait, I want to stay with the governor. Weren't we told when Barack Obama was elected and people called him unqualified, so many people said that's a racist statement, that is racist to say that our first black president is unqualified to hold the office merely because he's only been a senator for 2 years.
That's
now
exactly
Dr. Carson, one of the most renowned surgeons, pediatric neurosurgeons in the world, he's too stupid to learn how to run an organization that has 8,000 employees. I don't know, Gov. You tell me whether those same people are going to say that's a racist statement now.
Well, for 8 years, every time a person commented on something Barack Obama did and disagreed with him on a policy question, they were called a racist. Well, we've all been called racist because we raised questions about Obama's judgment, about his policies. Now, what is different And why wouldn't that same standard be applied when people like Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or CARE go and attack Ben Carson, who, by the way, spoke very eloquently during the campaign? Somebody must not have been listening, but he spoke very eloquently about how to make an urban America a very different and safe place. This is not a man who has failed to think about these issues, and he grew up with a mother who worked 3 jobs to keep him off government assistance. I think we ought to say that not only has he been smart enough to become a neurosurgeon, but his own personal experience of growing up in dire poverty is a great platform to go to HUD and to say, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Not just, do I know something about what the government's been doing for 40 years, because frankly, what the government's been doing for 40 years hasn't worked. So maybe it's time to bring somebody on with a fresh set of eyes, a fresh set of hands, and in this case, somebody who has been given almost every accolade and award, including major awards from the NAACP, and he's been a hero to the whole country until he decided to run for president as a conservative Republican.
He came out and said, you know, a while ago, look, I'm not interested in getting rid of any safety net. I'm interested in getting rid of dependency. And that's an attitude he presumably will bring with him to any government post to which he may or may not be confirmed, you know, if he gets it. Anyway, great to see you both. Thank you guys for being here.